Hey, hello there from Area 51 Raceway, and I'm going to talk about the 3D kit. First off, I want to thank everybody that's pre-ordered the kit. Currently working on printing right now. All the chassis are done, but the bodies take a little bit longer in the interior, so we're working on those. We're looking at soon to release them. Give me about 2 weeks. We have Dave producing the bucks for the windshields, and it's taking a little longer because we want the kit to come with a lot of things that just makes it a little simpler, so you don't have to make your own windshield. You don't have to drill your own holes, blah blah blah, so forth. We want the kit as easy as possible, so you could just assemble it and within the chassis within an hour and have it running, and you could I'll go over taping the interior into the body and running the car with the body on before you paint it and everything. So what I'm going to go over is what happens when we get these chassis off the printer. The printer that I'm using is the Bamboo P1S printer, and it's a very excellent printer. It does a real good job. And then the filament I'm using is the American filament out of Huntsville, Alabama. So the material is American, and it's a little bit more money, but I feel that at least have the chassis made in America and with American material. And of course, obviously the printer is from a different country as well as the resin and all that, but we can't completely get everything American because it'd run too much in cost and I wouldn't be able to afford to do anything. So that being said, here's what we do. So when I get the chassis off here, the printing machine, I take them off, take the supports off. There's usually supports on these ends here and then none on the chassis. And what I do is I get the pod and then I use a 3/16 chainsaw tool, sharpening tool, and what I do is I sand these down, and because they will be tight, and sand them down. So this way when you put the bushing in, the bushing floats a little. You want to have the bushing to float, because if you have it too stiff, then the axle will be a little bit really super stiff and it won't roll. It'll roll, but it will be a little bit tight. And as Harry said in one video that he's done with putting the bushings on here, is that you sand this, you put your bushings in, you put a little oil in the hole, and you put your axle in there, and then you use super glue on the inside here, and you put your bushing in, put a little oil in there, do the same thing on the other side, put your axle in, and kind of get, to make them aligned, so this way it's not crooked or nothing, and you're just putting the axle in there with the bushings, and to keep it, so that they align nicely and they're nice and smooth. And then as he said also, when you're done, you get a wick of thin CA glue and it goes around the inside of the bushing and onto the inside of it as well, around in here. And the oil's there to keep the axle from getting any super glue on it and fusing it, and it works really well. And again, you want the bushing to float a little so it lines up so the axle slides in nice and easily. So I've done that. So this way you could put your bushing in easier and line it up, and the car will really roll nicely. That's real important. Another thing also is that you could file these down as well. You just use a flat file and file those down. So you just basically do that, and what you're doing is you're just sanding this surface right here on the underside of the pod. It's already done with that one. And it doesn't take much, and you just want it smooth so this way it slides on nicely onto these, bosses here on the chassis, so you have a nice floating pod. That's basically what that's for. Then what I do with these chassis itself, I get a drill bit, and I drill these holes out just right here, only on the underside. The top side I don't need to. And I do that so this way you don't have to do it, and you can use your grub screw, to tap the threads, which it'll work fine. If you want to use the M2 tap, you can. The only thing is make sure that if you're using the grub screws to make the threads, which it will do, which I've done several this way on the other cars I have here, is make sure you have your tool is not rounded out. Your hex tool, make sure it's hex shape, because if you round this, this is rounded out and worn out, and you do it on the grub screw, you'll strip the head of the grub screw and it'll get stuck in there and you'll have a problem. So that's basically what I do with the chassis, so that they're ready to go to put, your running gear parts and all that and stuff like that. Another thing you can do, and you do this on your own, obviously the sanding of the pod and the guide. So the guides come free or come with the kit. they're free basically, and we want to thank Oscar Slot Invasion for doing that for us. They come with the kit, and they're a little bit tight, so if you find it a little bit tight, you get a rat tail file and you just sand down a little the hole here, you know, to your preference to make it a little looser, and it will make the, you know, the guide float around nice, you know, move around a lot easier. So that's totally up to you what you want to do. So that's basically what we do. So we're going to go on to the body and talk about the body and the interior. Okay, here we are with the body and the interior. Real simple. This is your body, or interior, excuse me, your interior plate. As you can see, this is fairly, you know, very thin, but it's that way to give the interior lighter, because before these was really thick, it was causing the car to be heavier, and plus we wanted to make the lower the center of gravity lower on these cars, so this way they're not as tippy. That's why we've also reduced the height of these cars. Originally they were a little bit taller, but in the printing software we're able to lower them down to give them more of a lower profile so they don't be so tippy. The very first cars that I sent out as, you know, as test kits, and also as the first pre-production cars, they were a teeny bit taller, but you know, we had to experiment to see if there were any other problems with sending the kits out with other stuff. But the toppy tipness thing could be resolved by adding weight and then just, you know, tuning the car to the advantage of not being so top heavy. You could do that. So these interiors fit in here. As you see, they have little slats, which are the supports of the model itself, and we made it to where it just fits in nicely, just like that. And there's your car, and they're post mount onto the 3 points of the chassis right here. So you got that one, and that one. Now the height of it should depend on what you want to do. Now if you want it taller, you could add the shims to it, 3/32 nylon shims that Slot Car Corner produces in 10,000s to 60,000s to adjust it higher if you want. This one right here, if you want to make it lower, it's very, you know, you got to do this carefully. If you trim these down, you got to be very carefully do it, because you'll make this crooked or make it too low, and then you'll have a problem. You know, you could always add shims, but you want to be careful with that. But again, that's how you would adjust your, you know, put your body on, how it would mount. I usually, what I would do, like with these test cars, I'd tape the interior first to make sure they are, you know, not crooked, or, you know, not look proper, or the wheelbase should be perfect because they have the slots. But what happens is if you don't push this down all the way and you're just tilted a little, then you're going to be crooked. Obviously that's pretty extreme there, but if you don't get it in all the way properly and seat it in there, it's going to be crooked, and the car is going to sit crooked, and you're going to have a problem. So you want to make sure you take care of that. That's really important. And one thing you could do is you could tape it. Like I said, I've done with these cars to test, you know, how the body looks. And once you have it taped and you're happy where it's at, you could take it off, you know, paint it, do your thing, put it back in and retape it, and set it on the chassis and make sure you have it at the height. And then what you do is you just spot it with some just to do a little bit of UV glue on the 4 corners, and then peel the tape off, and then UV glue it completely up here, through here, down through here on the back. UV glue it so it's all secure, and then you're set, and then you can do what you need to do. Now as far as the screws, I've been experimenting with different screws. These are a little bit too fat. They do fit up there nicely. They you know, they work okay, but the thing is they stick out a little bit too much for my preference. Like for example, on the Challenger, I used a smaller one. Now you could use whatever screw you want. You could use inserts. Dave has done inserts, M2's inserts from Amazon, and you could search that and they'll be in there on Amazon. And he's drilled the hole out a little bit bigger and put the insert and glued it in there, and you could put inserts. If you want to just use this piece right here, the post, what I recommend is that you drill these out first, because there will be resin in there and sometimes it may be a little wet. Don't worry, but you drill these out all the way through about there, not through the interior, but enough about there. Same here. And then you use your screws to make threads in there. Now you could use inserts, you could use screws. If you run to the point where in the future where it starts becoming loose and it doesn't hold on, you could fill that with UV resin, you know, a little bit at a time, cure it, fill a little bit more, cure it, and it'll make it solid again. You can drill another hole, and you'll make, you know, some more new threads in there. UV glue really is, it just adheres to this very, very well. Now after you UV glue all this, remember, once you UV glue it on there, this is not going to come off. Yeah, you'll basically destroy this whole car if you try and pull it off when it's UV glued, because UV glue, resin on resin, is extremely, it's really stuck on there. Just put it that way. It's like using epoxy, so just keep that in mind. The interior is a real critical component of these kits. We really had to do a lot of work to try and get it to sit right, and you know, if they sit a little bit tall in some cars, you could trim them down and it won't be a big deal, you know, to trim them down a little. Just be careful. But again, we look for feedback on that, so this way we go back to the file and adjust it. So if any concerns you have, of course, you email us at 3a3dslotcars.com, and we could, you know, go over some of the little issues that may come up and help you out. But that's pretty much it for the body. I mean, I can't say anything else about it. Of course, the wing is separate because we don't want it attached, because what happens if this breaks during shipping, and then you have a broken wing. So Steve has suggested that we leave it detached, so you'll get the wing and you glue it on. You could use magnets or use wire, however you want to put it on, or tiny screws. They had to be super tiny screws. I probably wouldn't advise against it, but that's basically it. So now we'll talk about what comes with the kit next and go over that. Okay, what comes with the kit? So everything you see right here comes with the kit. The only thing that isn't displayed here is the window bucks. Now you're going to see a little bit of this. That's just from the resin not drying off too well. That's not a big deal. Once you paint that over it, it'll be fine. It's an interior. It shouldn't be a big issue. Once you get this all, you know, worked out, it's, you know, painted over it, it looks really nice, and you may see some of that. It's not anything to be concerned about. It's just part of the curing process, and, you know, resin on there, some little bit of residue left over. I try and clean them up best I can, but some do come out like that. But again, nothing to be alarmed about. Once you primer this, that all disappears and it's not a problem. So I just wanted to mention that real quick. So what comes with the kit? The body, the interior, the little exhaust piece, which goes right here, which is really tiny for the Mustang. You could detail that and you know, do what you need to do with it, and then put it in there, paint it silver, black, whatever color you want. And then the of course, the chassis and the pod. The guide comes also with the kit. Thank you to Oscar from Slot Invasion USA. He has offered to put the guides in the kits. He's promoting his guide along with our kit. We really appreciate that. And then the decals for the front and rear. Obviously, this is for the Challenger because I only have Challenger ones. Dave is making the Mustang one, so you'll have that. And then the window bucks for the rear and the front. So that's what comes with the kit. The 2 window bucks, the interior, the chassis, the pod, the exhaust piece, the body, the decals for the front and back, the guide, and then you get 2 stickers, the 3A3D, and of course our three goofy looking asses on there on the 3 Amigos thing that Dave's made up. And that's what comes with the kit. And